Welcome to another MECH 1000 video. We're looking at chapter 8 in the textbook, and in this video we are going to learn how to make dimensions. Now, dimensions are something that we've been seeing in many of our drawing assignments, and you may have experimented with putting some dimensions on your drawings to make sure things are drawn to the right size. But starting in chapter 8, your drawings are going to be required to have dimensions. And not only do you need to provide the dimensions, but they need to be formatted properly. So in this video, I'll try to show you how to do that. So the first thing to point out is that dimensions can be accessed from two different locations. There is a small annotation toolbar on the Home tab, and this will allow you to make text, to create dimensions, or leaders, tables, or to specify a specific type of dimension. So this dimension command will allow AutoCAD to essentially guess at the type of dimension you're trying to make. If you're familiar with Inventor, this dimension tool works in a similar way to how dimensions are made in Inventor. But my actual preference is to use this pull-down menu to specify a specific type of dimension that you want to make. And the most commonly used dimensions are linear, aligned, angular, radius, and diameter. And so let's start with linear, which is probably the most common type of dimension. And it is made basically just by clicking in 2 points. Let's say this bottom left corner and this top left corner. Okay, and actually I don't like that layer. Let's switch up my layer. So I would recommend that starting in this chapter, you edit your template to create an additional layer so that dimensions or annotations can be added on their own separate layer. So I've got a separate layer. I'll place a linear dimension going from lower left to top left corner, and then you can drag that dimension away from the part. Now there's no specified distance that the dimension has to be away from the part. We just don't want it to be overlapping the part. We don't want the text to be overlapping any visible lines, or we want to avoid having it right on top of the part. We want to drag it away. And if I drag it to the left, it gives me the vertical dimension between those 2 points. If I position my cursor between the 2 points and I drag up, it gives me the horizontal dimension. So I can either make a horizontal or vertical linear dimension after clicking on those 2 points. And then with my third click, I can actually place the dimension. So the thing about linear dimensions is that they are always either vertical or horizontal. And that is the most common type of dimension that is used. Now I can get rid of these two and show you what an aligned dimension is. Unlike linear dimensions that are always horizontal or vertical, an aligned dimension is parallel to the 2 points being dimensioned. So if I'm dimensioning the endpoints of this diagonal line, the aligned dimension gives me the actual diagonal length of that line. Now occasionally you may want to show an aligned dimension, but typically they are not as common as their linear counterparts. In addition to aligned dimensions, we have angular dimensions, which if you click on any two lines that are not parallel to each other, you can place a dimension that will show you what the angle measurement is. And in a future video, we'll look at how we can reformat this to show either decimal degrees or degrees, minutes, and seconds. In addition to linear, aligned, and angular, we also have radius dimensions. Radiuses should be used anytime you have an arc or part of a circle. And diameter, again, you just click right on the circle, can be used to show the size of a full circle. So we use radii for partial circles or arcs, diameters for full circles, angular dimension, and then I'll place these linear dimensions on it again. Both a horizontal, or rather a vertical and horizontal linear dimension. So these are how you can make these common types of dimensions. You can also, I started off the video by saying dimensions can be found in two places in the ribbon. One, this little small annotation toolbar on the Home tab, but then there is also an Annotate tab all on its own. So here you've got, again, that basic dimension tool, and then here we see the linear with the pull down on it that gives us the option of specifying which of these types of dimensions we want to use. So starting with Chapter 8, you are going to need to provide dimensions. We want to avoid overlapping the drawing itself with our dimensions. They need to be pulled away from the dimension, giving it some amount of space, and the dimensions should be on their own separate layer. I'm going to try to keep this video short, and so I'll end it here and make a separate video for showing you how to format these dimensions.